Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode, we're doing Who Was Better. The topic for this Who Was Better, Double J, Jeff Jarrett, and the Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle. Now usually when I do my Who Was Better videos, I like to have a somewhat connecting theme to them. As you may already guess, their connecting theme is they both married the same lady, Karen. They spent time in both WWE and TNA together. So we're going to go through, we're going to grade them both in 8 separate categories. Each category we're going to rate them on a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. At the end we're going to tally the points. Whoever has the most points win. But wait, there will be a chance for a bonus. And when we get there, we'll talk about that. Now let's jump right in with our first category, technical wrestling. For technical wrestling, I'm giving Jarrett a 4. I've been around wrestling and watching wrestling long enough that I remember the discourse in the 1990s being that Jeff Jarrett was basically Shawn Michaels light, and if Shawn Michaels was the best in-ring performer in the world, Jeff Jarrett wasn't that far off. I kind of agree with that, but I put it more so like Shawn wasn't the only guy up in that upper echelon. I put Bret up there, Razor Ramon up there, Vader, Flair was still at a very high level at the time. And then as you go through his years, people like Benoit, Guerrero, Chris Jericho, Triple H, Austin, his compadres in TNA like Samoa Joe, Sting, and others, I would put them all just a hair above him. That's why he goes into that 4 category. Now for Kurt Angle, Kurt's getting a 5. See that, Dave? How easy is it to give Kurt Angle a 5? And for those of you that know what I'm talking about, you get the joke. For those that don't, quick TLDR, Dave Meltzer has never given Kurt Angle a 5-star match. It's probably the most egregious omission of someone from getting a 5-star match. Like, you'd be hard-pressed to find a wrestler in any company, in any era, that is better at technical wrestling than Kurt Angle. I mean, he won the gold medal with a broken frickin' neck. I mean, what more can you say about the guy? He is absolutely fantastic. Again, he gets a 5. Now going striking, for Jarrett's going to get a 4. Again, I think Jarrett was very well-rounded, and honestly, I think he's a bit underrated for his era. I think people don't quite give him the respect that he deserves. I think he was a lot better than most people think of him. A lot of people get this idea because of his TNA run that he made himself the world champion. But if you look at WCW, he was getting world championships in that company too, and he wasn't anything to do with the booking there. I think it's more of the fact that here's a solid wrestler that could get solid reactions. That's why he gets pushed to the top a lot. Now for Kurt Angle, again, Dave, he's getting a 5. Much like I said about the technical wrestling, I could say about striking. When you put Kurt Angle in a wrestling ring, there are very few wrestlers that I would consider on his level. When he's in between those ropes, he's just as good as Shawn Michaels in his prime, Ric Flair in his prime, Kazuchika Okada in his prime, Tanahashi in his prime, Kenta Kobayashi, Misawa, whoever you want to say is one of the greatest in-ring performers of all time. Kurt Angle's right there in that conversation. That's why he gets a 5 in both striking and in technical capabilities. Now going for our next category, how they perform as a heel. I'm giving both these guys a 5 here. I think Jeff Jarrett is better suited as a heel. Not necessarily now. Now he's the kind of lovable old veteran, kind of like where Ric Flair got to be, where there came a point you couldn't boo him anymore because he was just so beloved. Kind of like Roddy Piper. And yes, I know you people are going to get in there and tell me that Jarrett's not Roddy Piper or Ric Flair, but I know you understand what I mean when I say he's a beloved old veteran. I think his best work was his heel work, whether it be as a cocky country singer, Jeff, JARRET, or the don't piss me off slap nuts hitting people with guitars all over the place. I think he did his best work as a heel. He was very much a throwback to heels of the 70s and the 80s, and in that lineage, that's why he gets a 5. Kurt Angle, again, he was somewhat more of a Swiss Army knife as a heel. When you needed him to be a serious menace, he could be a serious menace. When you needed him to be a goofy heel, he could be a goofy heel, whether it be when he first cut his hair and he wore the wig under the headgear, or the iconic stuff during the invasion with him and Austin and Vince McMahon. He's just top notch. What can I say? He gets a 5 here, along with Jarrett. Now next up, how they perform as a babyface. For Jeff Jarrett, I'm going to give him a 3. If you go back and watch his younger years in Memphis, he was a pretty good babyface. Now, as the years went on and he became more of a heel more often than not, he fit that role perfectly, so he never really went back to that. I think he could have developed into a top-tier babyface if given the time, but like I said, most of his run, he performed as a heel. So for that, he's getting a 3 right about average. Now for Kurt, surprise, surprise, Kurt's getting a 5 again. And again, Kurt could do anything. You could ask him to be goofy and he'd be goofy. You could ask him to be serious, he'd be serious. He could be the guy that was defending the company versus the outsider or fighting the big, tough other wrestler of the month. He was just that guy. Kurt Angle, he was great pretty much at everything. So that, again, he gets a 5. Next up, we're going to go to promos. And I'm going to give both these guys a 5 here. This is another thing where I think Jeff Jarrett isn't rated as highly as he should. And a lot of this is my personal enjoyment of what I like in a wrestling heel. I like the smarmy heels. I like the Jeff Jarretts. I like the guys that only win because they cheat. I like the guys that are cocky to the point where they talk a bunch of crap, but then when it comes time to back it up, they cower. I like that kind of heel, and Jeff Jarrett was great at that. I'm one of the people that really enjoyed his cowboy singer run, for lack of a better term for it. I liked his run with the Horsemen and that whole thing there. I liked him in TNA. I thought he was awesome in TNA. I was one of the people that understood why he was champion and enjoyed him as a champion. I think he cut some great promos. I do think he kind of gets underrated in this, but again, what are you going to do? I think he's one of the guys that's very criminally underrated, in my opinion. Now, Kurt, we all know the greatness of Kurt Angle's promos, whether it be the 3 eyes, the stuff he did with Joe in TNA, the stuff where he was in the Main Event Mafia, him and Edge and Christian, just goofing off him and Austin like we talked about earlier. Kurt just got it, and there's another category where I think he's absolutely perfect at it. Both these guys get 5s for their promos. Now next up, presentation. Again, here's another category where I'm going to give both these guys a 5. Whether it's Jeff Jarrett with the light-up hat and the weird, suspender strap things that he wore, and in my opinion, one of the great theme songs of all time, the Ain't It Great, or even his TNA song, the wee-woo, wee-woo. You know what I'm talking about. I can't really do it here, but you get what I'm getting at. The silver trunks with the JJ on the side, he was instantly noticeable, and I thought he had one of the better presentations of his generation. Go to Kurt Angle. I mean, again, another category where he was presented exactly how he should be. He leaned heavily into the Olympic gold medalist. He wore red, white, and blue 99% of the time, sometimes mixing in black and gold. He had the da-na-na-na with the "You Suck" chants. Everybody knew who he was and knew it immediately, even though that's the Patriots' music originally. He took it and made it his own. It was a perfect representation for what an Olympic gold medalist should be. Again, you don't mistake anybody else for either of these guys. And that's, when I look at presentation, that's what I look at. How quickly do you recognize a person by their music, by their gear, by the way they look? And these guys would stand out. If you put 100 wrestlers in a lineup, you'd be able to go Jeff Jarrett, Kurt Angle real quick. Now, our next category, charisma. For Jarrett, I'm giving him a 3. And this is where I think the disconnect between all of the other intangibles that I've gave him high scores in and how he related to the fans differs. This is where I think people don't quite give him the respect he deserves. It wasn't as easy as a connection as like a Shawn Michaels had, as a Stone Cold had, as a Eddie Guerrero had, where the fans just gravitated to certain people. He had a little bit of a harder road at it, and it wasn't a natural at it. He didn't connect naturally, and there were times where, even for me, a fan of his, he didn't feel like he was connecting at all with the fan. So for that, I'm going to give him a 3. I don't think he was bad. I think he was right about average. But again, we're grading him against an era where it had some of the all-time greats still active, whether it be Flair, Hogan, Piper even. He's some of the most charismatic wrestlers that ever did it. So unfortunately, he's right about average. Kurt, this is going to shock you guys. He gets a 5 again. I know I'm sounding like a broken record, and I know I'm kind of gushing over the greatness of Kurt Angle, but he had that it factor. From the first time you seen him, all the way to even appearances now. I mean, even a picture of him becomes a meme, and that was a pretty funny meme going around about this time last year or so with the Kurt Angle face, which you still see every now and again. I mean, what can I say about the guy? Kurt Angle, he just had everything you would want to be a pro wrestler. He's in that rarefied category like someone like himself or Randy Orton would be, where they got every tool you can imagine and they put them all to their advantage. Our last category, but definitely not the least, big game performance. How they perform in the main events, the big pay-per-views, big shows, heavyweight championships, intercontinental championships, whatever championship they may be going for. When they're put at the biggest stage, how do they perform? And I'm going to be honest with you, they're both getting a 5. I know I mentioned earlier about Kurt Angle never getting a 5-star match from the Wrestling Observer. I don't know what Dave Meltzer watched, because me and anybody else that watched Kurt Angle's career can probably name at least 20 5-star matches, and if I really thought about it, probably could get into the 50s. Same with Jeff Jarrett. I don't think, again, this is another thing that I think people don't give him as much credit as he deserves. I mean, Jarrett had some great matches with everybody from Jerry Lawler to AJ Styles to even China. The match with China, the Good Housekeeping match, was a really good match. I really enjoyed it. It was very entertaining. Now, is it your classic Steamboat vs. Savage match? No, but it wasn't meant to be. That's not what it was for. Jeff Jarrett understood the assignment. He knew what type of match he needed to put on, and he did it great. I think some of his matches with Mongo McMichael are some of Mongo McMichael's best matches. Again, another person, another category I don't think he gets the credit for. I do think when he was at his biggest stages, when he had to defend the TNA title, the NWA title, the WCW title, the Intercontinental title, Jeff Jarrett always gave his best and always gave a great, in my opinion. Now, totaling everything up for Jeff Jarrett, he gets a total of 34. For Kurt Angle, this one's a first. He gets a perfect score. This is, I want to say it's my first here. I've been doing these for a little over a year, so there may have been someone else and I'm just forgetting that. But Kurt gets a perfect 40. He gets 5 in every single category. Now, if you remember, in the beginning of the video, I mentioned that there's a chance for 5 bonus points. Now, with the gap as it is now, it's not going to change this, but if this was closer, these 5 bonus points could have meant the difference. And basically how you get those, every Wednesday I put a post on my posts page here on YouTube asking you guys, who do you think is better? And you vote for either one, this case being Jarrett or Angle. The winner gets 5 bonus points. I knew what this was going to be. I knew it was going to be a landslide for everything that I talked about during this video about Jeff Jarrett being underrated and not connecting as well as Kurt Angle. I knew how you guys were going to vote on this. And obviously, it was probably the biggest landslide that I can remember. Kurt Angle gets another 5, giving him 45, the highest total points you could possibly get on this. Basically squashing Jeff Jarrett. But what I want you guys to come out of this video with and come out thinking about is, let's look at Jeff Jarrett at a different light. Yes, Kurt Angle was great. Yes, he's one of the all-time greats. But Jarrett wasn't that far behind. And there's a lot of wrestlers that if I would have put Jeff Jarrett against them, I think he would have beat them. A lot of people you wouldn't expect. It just so happened I put him against a guy that's probably, in my opinion, a top 10 all-around wrestler of all time. Once again, congratulations, Kurt Angle. I want to thank you guys for watching the video, especially if you made it here to the end. Pay attention on Wednesday. You'll see another post for next week's Who Was Better video. Vote in that. You could be the deciding factor. In this case, it just gave Kurt a more dominant win, but you get the point. With all that being said, my name is George Coles, and you've been watching Who Was Better.